Your Honor, my client is clearly innocent. At the time of the murder, he was actually doing like really cool wizard stuff. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another legacy video, and today I have been challenged to brew around Mastermind Plum. Now, this card comes from the Clue game of Magic the Gathering, which had some sort of strange variant rules where, in addition to just winning the game normally, you could try to investigate your way towards a victory by solving a murder Clue style. And a bunch of those cards just kind of slipped through the cracks as a low priority release. Let's see if we can try to make something work with this card. So it's got two different abilities. When it attacks, exile up to one target card from a graveyard. If an artifact card was exiled this way, make a treasure token. Whenever you cast a spell, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it, you draw a card and you lose a life. On the surface here, I don't really think this is a legacy power level card. There's no haste here. There's no evasion here. I think this is a hard sell. So I think I'm largely going to ignore the top part in brewing and try to focus on the bottom part. But I think the thought process here is pretty useful. So I'm going to walk you through kind of the three stages of brewing I went through in trying to build around this difficult to build around card. And note that these aren't going to be finished deck lists, as I abandoned the deck building stage for two of these lists. My first idea was actually to try to build around Disciple of the Vault. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may have target opponent lose one life. And my initial idea was to cycle through a whole bunch of artifacts here in hopes of draining via Disciple of the Vault, growing some other artifact things, and I would treat Mastermind Plum as a way to make more artifacts for metalcraft purposes. And that was my initial idea, and I started building, and I basically felt like I was just playing 8 cast with 2 black cards in it, and I was not satisfied with that. So I abandoned that idea. And then we got jankier. Idea number 2 was to try and build a deck that had as many overlapping cards as possible. Overlapping combo cards as possible. And I thought about Warren Soultrader. Warren Soultrader can go infinite with Gravecrawler. And I thought to myself, hey, this sounds kind of nice. With the bottom ability, I can then use Mastermind Plum to draw me towards something else to help me win the game immediately. And this would be those like Marionette Apprentice type cards. And I thought, hey, if I make a treasure and I also make a squirrel at the same time, that's sort of interesting. Or I could go ahead and double up all of these various abilities while I am doing stuff. Maybe throwing in a combo with Cauldron Familiar, where I sacrifice the Cauldron Familiar to Warren Soultrader, and then I double up all of those tokens with Academy Manufactor and kind of pop off that way. And then we would need some way to tutor for all of that stuff to make it viable. And I put this together, I was somewhat happy with this, and then I went, there's no interaction in this deck. There's no Swords to Plowshares, there's no Thoughtseize, there was just literally no way to interact with an opponent. And I went, I probably can't be doing that in Legacy, and I scrapped this idea. I did like the idea of trying to make Mastermind Plum part of a combo engine, though. And so I shifted away from the top artifact ability, and I'm going to focus on the bottom ability still, and its synergy with Warren Soultrader. And to build this deck, I actually went back, it was maybe a year or so, through my Mox field to when I played another deck that had Warren Soultrader in it. I want to say I was Punishing Waterfalls top-aided with a deck that looked similar to this one, and I have just added in some tech that has emerged in the year or whatever it has been since that happened. Voice of Victory is a really cool way to force a combo through. And if we want to be able to do the Warren Soultrader combo thing, we can maybe do that with protection. If the deck is going to be largely built around Warren Soultrader, I think that I need some ways to either bring that back or tutor it up. And I also need some things that can happen in the early game that can take pressure off of my mid-game creatures, which are actually going to be more important. So these creatures are great and fantastic and fun, but they are probably going to be bait for the top end of my deck. The big payoff card is going to be Knight Errant of Eos here, which has Convoke. When it enters, you look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 creature cards with mana value X or less from among them, where X is the number of creatures that convoked this creature. And then you put the revealed cards into your hand and shuffle. So the idea is we play out a bunch of creatures. If the board stalls out, we use Knight Errant of Eos to dig for either protection for our combo or for the other piece that we are missing. And with this deck, I was able to fit in some game 1 removal. I couldn't fit in game 1 interaction while still getting Mastermind Plum into the deck beyond that, but I think this is enough to at least be a playable deck. As far as the sideboard goes, just very clearly targeted at combo. Hopefully game 1 we're okay versus fair stuff. We will have a few generic fair creatures that we can board in when necessary. And we'll just kind of see how this plays out. I think Mastermind Plum was a challenge to build around. I came up with some okay ideas. Got better ideas, throw them down in the comments below. This was one of those times where I went very, very deep into like the EDH recommendations, trying to find things to play. And we'll see how it turns out. Folks, if you need any cards for this deck or any other, I know all those Final Fantasy spoilers are coming out quickly, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your order. At any given time, they tend to have 95% of all standard legal stuff in stock. So you need new stuff, they're going to have it shortly after release. And if you're going to Vegas, you can place your order online in advance, save the money with the promo code, and then pick it up conveniently on site and not have to worry about any shipping woes if you're a little tight on time. So, let's battle. All right. Opening hand is totally fine here. I can have 2 basic lands and a Surveil land. Probably be pretty good versus your average blue deck here. Ooh, we've got a defense grid. That probably means that I am playing Orcish Bowmasters first in case my opponent's combo has to do with drawing cards. Against defense grid, I will probably get rid of Swords to Plowshares. So let's just sorcery speed, go for this. Again, my opponent could be like draw 7 combo. It's probably scarier for me if they are a red-based storm combo. Planar Nexus. Anyway. Swords to Plowshares would be nice now. I mean, you know. Good Magic player, basically. Voice of Victory makes this effectively uncounterable. Swords the Glaring Fleshraker. That means that Bowmaster can get in there. And Marionette Apprentice plus double Voice of Victory is going to go wild. Whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses a life. Well, shit. They've got another one. So Soul Guide Lantern is fine. It's the like Kozilek's Command style cards and the One Ring style cards that are much scarier. Face? It's probably face since I have Marionette Apprentice here. When is that? 12? Manifold Key? Yep. I am such a fucking good Magic player. Let the record show. Oh boy. Alright, yeah. We will make the separate body, go to combat, attack in, trigger Voice of Victory, which creates 2 more bodies. My opponent goes down to 8, and then at end of turn, I am going to sacrifice these tokens, triggering Marionette Apprentice twice. My opponent is at 5. Opponent's casting something big. It must be like a Kozilek's Command. It is. My opponent is going for spawns and scrying to draw a card. So I'm going to get a Bowmaster trigger here. I think my opponent needs the One Ring. I think otherwise they are going to be dead. They are going to be at 3 life. I have a lot of power on board. That is a Basalt Monolith. That can boost them forward in terms of mana. So this will be 5 mana, 6 counting the spawn. There is the One Ring. That is what my opponent needed. So they can draw a card, and with my Bowmaster, I now can't target their life total. I am going to ping the spawn so they can't carry that over into the next turn, and then they can sacrifice that spawn so that my Orc Army token does not get larger. That Ancient Tomb can now be tapped for mana appropriately. Untapping Basalt Monolith for the future. My opponent has 0 cards left, so that's their turn. They are at 3 life with double Ancient Tomb, a 1 ring on 1, and an Orcish Bowmasters in play. I also have Marionette Apprentice. I'm going to try to find a Warren Soultrader here so that I can just sacrifice creatures on my opponent's turn. I don't think that does anything that these other cards don't already do. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that. It is Ocelot Pride instead. Okay. And then with Voice of Victory anyway. Sends a message, you know? Oh, wait. Shit. That is loss of life. That is not damage. I guess the other Marionette Apprentice kills my opponent that turn, not in their upkeep. It's deterministic either way because of Orcish Bowmasters. If they draw an extra card there, I ping them. Yeah, I guess that doesn't matter then. Okay, so I want to interact with my opponent. I was incredibly lucky to see 3 of my 4 copies of Swords to Plowshares in like my top 12 cards or whatever. I do not believe that we can take that as the norm here. I think I need some amount of this stuff coming in, probably all of it. This is slow, and then some number of these cards need to come out. It honestly might just be all of them. Plum is slow, Knight Errant is slow. I can do this without hurting my infinite combo. This is still 28 creatures. That's totally fine. The Deafening Silence fucks up my infinite combo, though. Wait, hold on. That's not actually true, right? Because I just need to cast creatures. Yeah, that's not actually true. JK. This is an okay hand. It has 2 pieces of interaction plus a wasteland that I generically just throw out on my opponent's first land. I think despite the fact that this is land heavy, I just accept that. Urza's Tower, sure. Ocelot Pride is great. I will wasteland my opponent in their upkeep. Bam. It is another Urza's Tower, unfortunately, and my opponent has a Voltaic Key now. Okay. I will, I think, go ahead and play out my Ocelot Pride rather than leaving Swords to Plowshares available immediately. I think I would like to be able to attack with this next turn, and there's a bunch of other things that my opponent can play. I almost certainly am going to play Orcish Bowmasters on my opponent's turn. I don't think I'm going to leave open double Swords to Plowshares here. I'll just pass. And then whenever my opponent goes to draw, I will Bowmasters. And this leaves me with the option to Swords if things get weird. There's Bowman. Trigger is, unfortunately, it looks like a Kozilek's command to take out my Bowmasters. Yep. So we ping my opponent for a little bit, but now Voltaic Key probably goes wild. Gonna untap the One Ring, then my opponent gets a draw 3. They have 9 cards in hand. They still have mana available. Not a good spot for me, especially since one of their lands just taps for 3 mana. Oh shit. That went better than expected. So we will take out a Glaring Fleshraker. I think I am going to go ahead and Thoughtseize my opponent. It's not... You know what? Never mind. It was fucking phenomenal. We took their only relevant card. That is not going to be the case on average versus my opponent who has drawn that many cards with the One Ring. So what my opponent can do here is they can now sacrifice this spawn so I don't gain life and get the bonus token. So now I have a Swords available for if my opponent plays another Glaring Fleshraker, but they get so many cards here, and I really needed that Bowmasters to stay alive. Urza's Workshop, not legendary, by the way. So my opponent has drawn 9 cards with the One Ring this turn. They have 15 cards in hand. I don't think I am coming back from this. Yep. I will respond to whatever they put on the stack here. Just first opportunity. Go ahead and swords that. But there's just another. And I don't like my prospects for winning this game. My opponent's deck, I think, is just much faster than mine, and it has way more card draw potential. Opponent going for bonus mana by untapping the monolith. Are we reaching Ugin levels of mana, or it is a giant Kozilek's command? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and tap out at this point. I imagine that I just die this turn now. So we frankly did not have enough interaction there. Okay, I can start this game on a deafening silence, which should significantly slow my opponent down. When we reach the later portion of the game, if they cast one spell per turn, that is still going to catapult them ahead of what I am capable of doing. And that was a non-creature into a creature. And unfortunately, I don't have removal this time, so that's not great. I think I am going to get both copies of Guide of Souls going here and just hope for the best. This Grim Monolith is currently untapped. Sorry, is currently tapped, so that's nice for me. However, the rest of what's going on here is not great. My double Guide of Souls will kind of keep up with their double Glaring Fleshraker, but as you can see, it's going to get wild quickly. Okay, well, I mean, yes, just yield to all energy generating abilities, and we are now racing, folks. I have 6 energy, which means that I can attack with both of these copies of Guide of Souls and put counters on both to fly over my opponent's creatures. And I am back at 20 life, despite the fact that my opponent has double Glaring Fleshraker in play. Hopefully I just end up killing my opponent. They have untapped their stuff, though, and they're casting something on my turn. This is not great. That is a Kozilek's command. So I'm going to take some damage here, and that's 4 more triggers. I am at 12. I might outright die this turn, despite the fact that my opponent can only cast 1 non-creature spell. Urza Saga is fine. That doesn't do anything here. So now it's a question of, do I block? If I have all 3 creatures, I play Gravecrawler, I get enough energy to do one of these. I can attack for 9 easily. But if I draw a land, I can have lethal, because I can do 2 sets of counters. Gravecrawler can't block. I think I'm doing no blocks, and we'll see what happens. I'm at 8. Mox Opal. So that's my opponent's 1. Do you have an instant you can play on my turn? Like, am I dead to Kozilek's command? No. Or maybe, and you haven't done it yet. I play Voice of Victory. I gain 3, I am up to 7. I attack for 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 3, 6, 7, 8. No, it's plus 2, 9, 10. That's good enough. But I'm dead to a piece of interaction. Oh, hot damn. Margins were tight on that one. That was turn 4. Ooh, that was scary. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you want to see upcoming sets, if you want to understand commander brackets, or if you just want an awesome place to store all, and I mean all, of your deck lists, Moxfield is the place. You can organize all of your decks by folders, and you can even change the views. You like visual, they've got that. You like text, they've got that. Check out my Moxfield Pro Field if you want to see all, and I mean all, of the decks that I've been cooking up. So this is an awkward one. I have turn 1 Guide of Souls into Voice of Victory with a Knight Errant afterwards, but I have 2 cards that I can't cast here. I am on the play. Guide of Souls into Voice of Victory is strong. Is this good enough to be a keep? That's really tough. My opponent has revealed a Yorion, which can mean very, very different things. I think I'm going to try for something more consistent than this. Yeah, this is sweet. I think I am going to keep this and get rid of 1 Gravecrawler. I am going to be wastelandable here. I'm just going to accept that. So we're going to go Guide of Souls into Gravecrawler plus Shadowy Backstreet, and then hopefully we go Wild on turn 3 and just combo off. Yorion into Basic Forest? So is this going to be, yeah, like the Utopia Sprawl, Abundant Growth type things? Okay, that's fine. Mastermind Plum, hello. We want to find any untapped land here. That's tough. I'm going to say no to that. Let's Gravecrawler. So Guide of Souls is in this deck so that when you are doing the Gravecrawler loop with Warren Soultrader, you don't end up losing life as a whole. Because every time that you recast a Gravecrawler, you lose 1 life with Warren Soultrader, which is normally fine if you have a Marionette Apprentice. You can just kill your opponent before that becomes relevant. But especially if we start grinding things out in this direction, having the ability to be neutral or even gain life is pretty important. That was a very fast shuffle with that Ponder. I did not find what I am looking for, unfortunately. And I would love to have the Guide of Souls to play this turn, but I don't. So we are holding up Swords to Plowshares, which is probably not particularly good versus this opponent. And we just need another land to start getting something cool going on. But every turn that I don't kill my opponent is a turn that they get more time to draw more interaction or work towards Yorion being good. Leovold? Sure. I haven't seen a Leovold in a hot minute. I will just Swords to Plowshares this to use my mana, even if it does mean that my opponent gets a card. A Force of Will to protect Leovold. I will continue fighting. And now we do get the Leovold. Alright, come on, land. Fuck yeah. So, here we go. Here is our win attempt. So, when a creature enters, we gain an energy. We sacrifice Gravecrawler to make a treasure token. We use the treasure token to recast Gravecrawler. And every time that I do this, I'm going to gain an energy. So we are going to get infinite energy here. All right, I'm going to say that 15 energy here is good. We'll send in with Guide of Souls. We will put our +1/+1 counters on our creature. We have plenty of banked energy. And next turn, we will try to finish this combo with Mastermind Plum by adding in card draw every time that we do this loop. Brainstorm is fine. So Seiju played out. There's an Uro. That's totally fine. Opponent goes up to 17, can make an additional land drop. They can maybe disrupt what I am doing here. Do I attack now? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That seems fine. Send them. I'm just going to put the counters on the Guide of Souls, I think, instead of spreading these out. Something gets removed. I want it to be Guide of Souls. Opponent's at 7. Now, hopefully, I just finished the job here. All right, gain another energy. And now I'm going to draw as many cards as I would like. So, sacrifice Gravecrawler, make a treasure token. Cast Gravecrawler. So now I get the Mastermind Plum trigger, since I cast that from a treasure. It seems like my opponent has interaction and they're just trying to figure out what the fuck I'm doing. Which, to be fair, is an understandable reaction. Okay, no, they were just deciding whether or not they wanted to play out the remainder of the turn, and the answer was no. Turns out when you can draw 20 some odd cards and then go wild after that, there's just no need. So I had a land drop for turn, so at some point I end up probably sacrificing my Guide of Souls for a bonus energy or a bonus treasure, or sacrificing Mastermind Plum for a bonus treasure, and then I play out Marionette Apprentice and kill my opponent. All right, Mastermind Plum has a win on the board. What do I need versus this opponent? So I know they have Uro, so I know they are going to be like a dirtily slow control deck that is going to have decent options for removal. I might want some generic good cards like Goyf in here. The Nightmare is probably going to be medium. My opponent's removal is probably going to exile. I'm going to make that swap. I think on average, my opponent is going to be good at removing my stuff. Plum just unquestionably won us that game. That was the difference between, like, I have gone infinite, but just infinite energy, and I have gone infinite in a way that ends the game. But do I expect that I am going to assemble a 4-card combo versus a control deck? Probably not. That probably means that I just do this, and I can still just go infinite with Marionette Apprentice, or go life positive with Guide of Souls. Infinite life is a reasonable win condition versus a control deck that looks like my opponent. It's just a question of how much am I willing to click on Magic Online. I dislike that I have an ETB tapped land here, but the cards that I have are quite powerful. Like, I have 2 of my 3 combo pieces. I have a way to protect. I like what's going on here. Surveil land? Well, Gravecrawler can just go to graveyard. I can cast that. Excuse me, I can cast that from graveyard later on. That's perfectly fine. That's a good random hit. It doesn't feel as good as like hitting the Atraxa randomly when you are playing Reanimator, but that's a good hit. Oh no, are you for real? 1 lander on the draw? Alright. I think I'm just playing Bowmasters on my opponent's turn, rather than trying to slam Voice of Victory here. I really wish I had 1 more white mana. Wow. Okay, opponent's at 8 cards. I think they've got a Brainstorm. I could make them discard a card for no value, or I could let them cast Brainstorm. I am going to let them cast Brainstorm to use my mana. Like, I want bodies on board for when I eventually get to this. It is instead a Force of Will, which is fine. So I can Guide of Souls into another creature here, or I can play Voice of Victory. I'm going to play Voice of Victory. I don't have a flash creature this turn, and so while last turn I was trying to like press my opponent's mana. Wow. All right, sure. This turn I just want to put them to the test of having another Force of Will while they are stumbling, and they still don't hit anything. I just kind of go wild here. This is great. I'll get another Scrubland. I will play a Guide of Souls. I will play a Marionette Apprentice. That is a 3rd Force of Will. And I did this in a way where I would be baiting a Force of Will with worse cards first. So I do assemble Guide of Souls plus Ocelot Pride. And then next turn I can go crazy with Warren Soultrader and Gravecrawler or Knight Captain of Eos, whatever it is exactly that I want to do. This is where I say the London Mulligan is the most powerful thing in Magic, and you should use it. My opponent did not cast a spell this game other than Force of Will, and after casting 3 Force of Wills, like, they don't have the resources required. They are a multicolored deck, so they kept and fetched a basic island, and then were probably put off from a very large number of their spells. I would have mulliganed that one, unquestionably. GG's, though. Okay, I have an okay opening hand here. The Shadowy Backstreet means that I don't get a turn 1 play, but I have like Guide of Souls plus Ocelot Pride. I have Voice of Victory if I want to lead on that first instead. This is pretty good. When I use this Surveil land, I'm going to just be looking for a 3rd land drop and be junking most things that are not a 3rd land drop. So although Mastermind Plum is cool with Warren Soultrader, and like one of the things we would like to be doing, I think right now we just need to play towards beating Wasteland, which I think is singularly the card that I am most scared of right now. Because if I get Wastelanded, my 1 basic swamp does not cast Ocelot Pride and Guide of Souls, and could leave me in a very, very bad spot. Oh shit, it's fucking show and tell. Okay, not immediately. We have time. So, what's the line here? Am I going to Voice of Victory to make stuff uncounterable? Do I just need Bowmasters in immediately? Can put Warren Soultrader in off a show and tell? Not having white is relevant this turn. I can't just go Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride. There's a decent chance my opponent has a counterspell. I think they are just gonna win game 1. I'm going to play Voice of Victory. We get the counterspell now, if they have it, and they do. My opponent has show and tell. They get to do whatever they want, and I have minimal I can do to stop them. Hopefully I draw another untapped land, and I can make multiple plays. Sorry about that, I got a package. Ordered my girlfriend a little gift. She gets a new Switch video game. My opponent gets a stock up. So my opponent has dug 10 cards deep between those two stock ups. I'm going to imagine that they have most of what they need to win. They can use this turn to Thundering Falls and further select. And they're still at 15, and they've dealt all of that damage to themselves. Still can't do this. Bowmasters is my best thing to put in off of a show and tell, but it's also my best thing to cast, unfortunately. I think I'm just casting this and hoping for the best. I could instead put in a Knight Errant of Eos off show and tell, but that doesn't really do what I want unless it's convoked. Oh shit, am I still alive? It is a miracle that I am getting turns here. However, not having white is a major blow here. Send in. Opponent's at 12. I guess it's Guide of Souls? I wonder if my opponent already has the ability to go off and they're just trying to wait for a position where they beat Static Prison. Because that would be what I would be thinking about if I was the show and tell player here. Alright, it's happening. I'm going to put in a potential combo piece. It is Sneak Attack. Not great for me. My opponent created a priority pass that they didn't need to create. They could have fetched prior to that resolving. Unlikely to matter here. I imagine that I am dead or effectively dead here to probably Atraxa into Emrakul. Lotus Petal Emrakul. That'll do. GG. I'm honestly surprised this game lasted until turn 5. I would like interaction. Deafening Silence is mid. It doesn't always stop my opponent. When they go for omniscience-based lines, sometimes Deafening Silence can mess with that. Sometimes Deafening Silence can mess with like Lotus Petal into Show and Tell immediately. Nightmare is slow. Plum is slow. Knight Errant is slow. I think I have done this exact sideboarding plan already. Swords to Plowshares is mid. It sometimes has text. So this is Guide of Souls into Marionette Apprentice, 2 energy, into Warren Soultrader, 3 energy, attack for 5, be able to drain for a decent amount beyond that. I just don't think this is good enough. It's fine. I would love this in a fair matchup, but we are not in a fair matchup. Yeah, I'm in. One of Voice of Victory or Orcish Bowmasters goes here. I keep the swords because this helps with omniscience and makes it so that my opponent might be more likely to just dump in a creature, so I want to have the out to that. I think Voice of Victory making that out uncounterable sounds good. I'm going to get rid of Bowmasters. And I think I can ignore Deafening Silence on turn 1 for the most part to just get one of Ocelot Pride or Guide of Souls down immediately. I think I'm going to cast Ocelot Pride so that next turn, if I don't draw a land, I can just attack, get my cat, and play Deafening Silence. Little mana-based thing. I don't think I should have put the second basic swamp into the deck. I put it to have long-term stability versus decks like Delver. I just think 2 plains, 1 swamp is better than 2 plains, 2 swamp. There's Petal. Ah, shit. I could not get away with it. Alright. Good versus Omniscience. Good versus Creature dumped in. I think if my opponent has Omniscience, they still beat me. So I'm going to go good versus Creature that's dumped in. Okay, nice. So I sacrifice the cat, and then I can Swords Archon. Probably getting rid of Deafening Silence now. Yeah, this sure does not let me cast my other white card. This is exactly what I was just talking about, right? So, like, this turn is so much better if I get 2 energy off Guide of Souls from the Voice of Victory attack. Little decisions little decisions matter a lot, even sometimes the ones that are made before you start playing a game. Now, maybe that's the one swamp that already would have been in my deck, or maybe it's a second one that could be a fetch land instead. Or the white-black land that you can sacrifice to draw a card later on. That is, like, perfectly reasonable here as well. So I am going to attack. So I can stack this so that I do the Voice of Victory energy thing first, but I still only have 2 energy this turn. Opponent is up to 3rd land drop. They could start stocking up or just go off again. I'm hellbent, so whatever they do, it is happening. It is stock up. That means that I am still playing Magic, which is great. I did give my opponent a lot of life when I exiled the Archon, though, so we've got some damage control to do, basically, is what I'm getting at. Right, I don't really want the land at this point, but it's what I'm getting. Attack, Guide of Souls trigger on bottom, Voice of Victory trigger, yield to the energy generation, say yes here. We will make the, I don't know, the Guide of Souls fly. It's a respectable amount of damage, but again, since I gave my opponent life with Swords to Plowshares, this is not like lethal next turn or anything. It takes me 2 attacks to kill my opponent. 8 next turn. Am I dead? That's 4 mana. Alright. Sneak attack plus ability to activate. Yep. Air quotes, it's just an Atraxa into Lotus Petal plus Emrakul. Well, shit. GG's, this matchup feels incredibly tough. Okay, opening hand is fine. Again, we are seeing the fact that I might have trouble multi-spelling unless I hit another colored land, which luckily I did. I might just Shadowy Backstreet this turn and play Ocelot Pride and Guide of Souls next turn. Ooh, I am into that draw. We are hoping that my opponent is not just show and tell again. We got skunked by that matchup, and I would expect to lose that matchup most of the time. That is a basic island. So we could go Ocelot Pride, Guide of Souls this turn. I'm definitely playing Scrubland over Wasteland this turn. I think I am willing to get this countered or lightning bolted or whatever here, and then potentially have these 3 cards as my play next turn. This is good enough to get a response from my opponent. Are we resolving? If my opponent is a blue-red deck, like a blue-red Delver deck or something, they can't just lightning bolt this immediately on my turn, meaning I effectively take some mana away on their turn versus playing a normal creature. Alright, I'm in play. This is going to be the fetch to clear that Brainstorm. It is Hedge Maze. Are we doing Nadu stuff over there? Blue-green Show and Tell, an Uro mid-rangey deck, Sink into Stupor. Leaning towards this being a deck that wants to go slow. Wasteland Hedge Maze into Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride, Voice of Victory, double trigger Guide of Souls is fucking sweet. Oh, and it just gets to fucking happen. Nice. So, Wasteland Hedge Maze, Guide of Souls. It does feel really nice when you just get to resolve your spells, and you don't need to worry about any nonsense. And Knight Errant of Eos, and keep the goodness coming in a minute. So 2 triggers, 3 energy, pay the energy, and we're flying. This is 5 damage, and Ocelot Pride does more things. So make my cat. We're not quite at the city's blessing, but we're close. Ooh, I will make extra copies of these tokens. I guess I would then sacrifice those at the beginning of the following end step. Fuck. So I can just put a 4/4 into play, or I can put a 3/3 in play that has combo potential. I don't think I want to show my opponent this. I think I'm going to put a Knight Errant into play. There's an Omniscience. So I obviously can't reveal anything. No things were used to convoke this, and unfortunately it was show and tell. So we're going to die here. That is going to Cunning Wish, presumably for Firemind's Foresight. Oh, sure. We're just going to go directly for the shared summons. So that's Emrakul plus 1 friend. Yeah, that is Emrakul and Atraxa. That'll do. That'll do, unfortunately. So we know how this one goes. Unfortunately for us, this is not a positive matchup. Without Thoughtseizes in game 1 here, I just don't like my odds. And without some things like Containment Priest here, supporting the Thoughtseizes and Deafening Silences, or Hate Bears like, Archon or something like that, Archon of Emeria, I just don't think we win this matchup. Like, I imagine my opponent is favored by at least 20%, just deck-to-deck comparison. Well, I have a Thoughtseize. That's great. I have Bowmasters. That's great. I have more other Bowmasters. That's also great. I have one land. Am I willing to try to high roll this hand? I don't think so, because sometimes my opponent just casts stock ups and show and tells, and this doesn't interact reasonably. I'm gonna mulligan. I think I need 2 lands. Ah! Alright, I'll keep this one. I will keep this getting rid of the Gravecrawler. And we're going to do the same play that I did last time around, where I try to play Ocelot Pride so that I can play Deafening Silence on turn 2, or if I draw a land, I get Guide of Souls and Deafening Silence. And if not, Ocelot Pride can continue to just go. But then if my opponent just goes Lotus Petal, Ancient Doom, and fucking Show and Tells, we leave. We leave. We're done. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Oh, I'm coming back. I'm coming back. You talked me off the edge. Okay, we did hit the untapped land. That's a really big deal. So, fetch, Scrubland, Guide of Souls, Deafening Silence. Let the kitty cat parade begin. I have an aggressive clock in play. I technically have a hate card in play. Alright, it's not Show and Tell. We have dodged Show and Tell 2 turns in a row. That is fantastic. My opponent is also doing some self-damage with Ancient Doom. Hopefully I can ramp up. My opponent is discarding. They have so many cards. Another Ocelot Pride. Is that better than Voice of Victory? I think that is better than Voice of Victory, because that lets me Swords to Plowshares, a creature that my opponent show and tells in pseudo uncounterably. So send in. Don't have enough energy yet. Then at end step, I have 2 Ocelot Prides, and we're gonna scale up. We've got some cats. Third land drop, 4th mana. That's my opponent's 1 for this turn. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 damage next turn? Sure. I don't. You did your 1. Everybody gets 1. Okay, cool. That is another Deafening Silence. So, send in, triggers. Yes, we're just going to put the counters on a life linker, so I gain marginally more life. My opponent is at 7, and then 3. Ancient Tomb is still tappable. I think I will put another Deafening Silence into play, just so some weird bounce spell doesn't happen, and stop it. And then I still have uncounterable Swords to Plowshares for their turn. I think that's better than playing out Voice of Victory. So this is the City's Blessing now. So we're going to get cats, and we're going to get energy, and then we are going to get more cats and more energy. This is something you don't see a lot as a Legacy player, but like when you stack up multiple Ocelot Prides like this, and it's for each token you control that entered this turn, create an additional copy of it. The Ocelot Prides in multiples can get really wild. If you have seen like screenshots of just rows and rows and rows and rows of cats, this is how it happens. Opponent is going to 1 life. I will put in a Voice of Victory. My opponent has an Omniscience. They can cast a creature. They have an Emrakul who has protection from spells that are 1 or more colors. That's Swords to Plowshares. However, I am at 36 fucking life, and I have a pile of goddamn cats. So, do your worst, Emrakul. You are not enough. Go ahead, Emrakul. Who would win? 1 Emrakul or like 10 cats? Back some cats. Take 15. Go to 21. Cunning Wish. Sure. What have you got that deals with all of this? Echoing Truth. That is not enough. An Emrakul, though. Yeah. That's another turn. So now my opponent on their next turn can bounce the Deafening Silences out of play, and then maybe do something gross. I need to deal 1 point of damage to my opponent. Literally just 1. So 1, 2, 3. I definitely get rid of Deafening Silence because my opponent could otherwise bounce them. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I now need to get rid of 2 other cards. Ocelot Pride has the same name as something else. I'll get rid of that. And I will get rid of my tapped Scrubland. Alright. I can still take another 15 damage. That's fine. I am at 6. and we see if we can beat this. My opponent either needs to take an extra turn or remove all of these cards. Florian revealed. It's a lot of cards. Rainstorm. Cunning Wish does not bode well for me. That is shared summons. That is presumably a third extra turn here, as well as an Atraxa. Yep. That is disappointing. Thought we were putting up a win on that one. GG's. Terrible matchup. This league is flying by. We are already in round 5. Sure. All right. My opponent, Cabal Therapy's Force of Will. We are not playing Magic this match, unfortunately. So we will see whether or not my opponent kept a bad hand. And if they didn't keep a bad hand, I can't win this game 1. So there's the second land. There's a Cabal Therapy. Oh, cool. So I get turn 2'd by Oops All Spells. And that is a turn 2 with protection or double protection if they do end up waiting. I'll concede. Cool. So now we play the game of Mulligan towards Leyline of the Void, and then losing to the other cards that my opponent puts in their deck to dodge Leyline of the Void. This is slow. This is slow. This is slow. All of those need to come out. And beyond that, I don't really want to play Swords to Plowshares, but then if my opponent just plays a Goyf or a Rotting Regisaur and I don't have Swords to Plowshares, I actually don't have outs to that. We saw Goblin Charbelcher in game 1. My opponent could lean further into that for post-sideboard games. I don't know exactly what to do for these last couple of slots. If I'm willing to say I don't think you have Goyfs, I can largely remove these, but my opponent can just play out Poxwalkers and other roughly 3/1 sized creatures, so maybe I can't cut all of these. I think I'm going to go down 2 of these and 2 swords. I could go down 2 more and like play some Goyfs or something, but I think I still want to have the ability to end the game. Deafening Silence is great, except that my opponent eventually can just completely play around this card naturally, so I don't think this is good enough. It will buy me a couple of turns. I don't know that this wins through that. I think I have to mulligan to Leyline. That's a Thoughtseize. I don't think that's good enough. On 5, I will start thinking about keeping worse hands. So I can keep land, Thoughtseize, Ocelot Pride, Voice of Victory, and have a mediocre hand against my opponent's 7-card hand. There's a good chance that this doesn't win. I think I'm going to mull. I think a Leyline hand is too important. On 4, I would say this is an ideal 4. This play pattern sucks. Get this the fuck out of my format. It should have gone last BNR update, and we still have to sit here and play through this shit. Alright, that is an ETB tapped land from my opponent. Hey, fantastic. I will drop a Guide of Souls, and we'll see how long it takes for my opponent to break through Deafening Silence. It'll take a couple of turns, but it will almost certainly happen. Because Dark Ritual into creature, for example, still plays into Deafening Silence. There's the Dark Ritual, there's the creature. Yep. So, there's an Ocelot Pride. I gain an energy. That's cool. I will make a cat at end step. I'll make an energy. That's cool. My opponent will now win the game through Deafening Silence on turn 2. Excuse me, turn 3. There was a Wasteland in between there. Alright, so they sacrifice the Undercity Informer. Oh wait, hold on. There's 2 Narcomoebas there. Is it possible for them to mess this up? Because they can't just Dread Return. Okay, there's the Goyfs that I was talking about as another pivot. Yeah, in multiples. Cool. Yeah, they might have over-sideboarded and just killed themselves. That's great. Alright, that is a Spirit Guide for Memory's Journey from Graveyard. Starting Lotus Petal and Reanimate. My opponent next turn will just cast, well, in one of the next 2 turns, will just cast something that kills me. Cool. It's just 50-50 about whether I die immediately or have another turn. No bridge. No bridge. I also just died a Dread Return. Alright, make some stuff, and then die. That is Cabal Therapy. Immediately returns the Poxwalkers. I see the Thassa's Oracle is in their hand. Sure. So next turn they get the Reanimate. Alright. Play Marionette Apprentice. Triggers. Yield. Make a Servo. Make more energy. Go to Punchies. Send on in. Pay this stuff. Put some counters on the lifelinker, I guess. Opponent just takes all of it. I make some cats. I get some energy. It doesn't matter. I don't have a sacrifice or any outlet or anything to just end the game on the spot. There's Dread Return. Cool and fun. Well, we won 2 rounds, and then we got paired against 3 combo decks in a row, and we got skunked. So, overall thoughts on the deck list. Not bad. This second basic swamp should be some white producing land, maybe just another fetch land, maybe the white-black land from the Horizon Canopy cycle. I believe in the entire league, I never successfully got a card off of Knight Errant of Eos. The game was just over in one direction or another before that happened. And in most rounds, Mastermind Plum was one of the cards that I first went to sideboard out. This was a very good attempt at building a Mastermind Plum deck. I would consider this a successful deck. However, I don't think you should be building around this card. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze here. In terms of its first ability, it's just too slow by Legacy standards. It requires you to have a whole bunch of removal in your deck, or like have some other way to give this evasion. I don't think that's worth it. Most of my wins here this league were just carried by Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride, and Voice of Victory. And most of the other half of the deck was kind of irrelevant. That is a statement of power of these cards for sure. I would need to play more games with something that looked like this to get a feel for whether or not this is viable. Ignoring Mastermind Plum, like, is this viable as a top end for this deck? Or should this just be something else? We tried Dark Confidants before. That had some issues with Orcish Bowmasters. We'd run some top end like the One Ring or some other tutor card that helps us assemble the combo pieces if we still even want to keep the combo. It is possible that you could just like ignore Gravecrawler and Warren Soultrader and just play more generically good cards. Promote cards that look like this into the main deck. Play a couple more lands, get 2 more wastelands in there, get a few more removal spells in to force your creatures through. So I'm going to give this a shaky thumbs up. But boy, we do not want to play against combo. We are just going to be the slower and clunkier combo deck in a lot of cases. All right. Remember, kids, ban oops all spells in June. Kill the deck dead. Leave no survivors. And if you need any magic cards, you know where to go. For when you light your Oops All Spells deck on fire and never play it again, and you replace that deck with something that is fun to play against. Anyway, have a great rest of the day. See ya.